What if a book was so dangerous it got banned in over a dozen countries, not because it was violent, not because it was obscene, but because of what it revealed, because of the ideas it planted, the movements it inspired, and the fear it created in governments around the world? This isn't a myth. This book exists. And even today, decades later, some nations are still afraid of it. The book is called The Anarchist Cookbook, published in 1971 by a 19-year-old named William Powell. It wasn't a novel, it wasn't a memoir, it was a manual, a step-by-step guide to civil disobedience, homemade explosives, and guerrilla tactics. Powell claimed he wrote it out of frustration with the U.S. government during the Vietnam War. He wanted to spark rebellion, and he did. The Anarchist Cookbook includes instructions on how to make pipe bombs, Molotov cocktails, C4 alternatives, homemade tear gas, wiretaps, even LSD. It wasn't just a collection of ideas, it was a literal blueprint for chaos, and for many, that made it unforgivable. The book was banned almost instantly in multiple countries, not just for what it contained, but because of how people used it. It appeared in bomb plots, in police raids, in school lockers. Governments began treating it like a weapon. Libraries removed it. Bookstores refused to carry it. Import bans were issued in places like Australia, Germany, and the UK. Here's where it gets even stranger. Years later, William Powell completely changed his mind. He became a teacher, a peace advocate, and spent the rest of his life trying to distance himself from the book. He even tried to get it unpublished, but he couldn't. He had sold the rights, and the publisher refused to pull it. Even as Powell wrote public apologies, the book kept spreading. The controversy hasn't faded. In the 1990s and 2000s, the Anarchist Cookbook was linked to multiple domestic terrorism cases. Investigators often found it downloaded or printed alongside other incriminating material. Even though thousands of books contain instructions on chemistry or weaponry, this one remained uniquely symbolic, a trigger word for authorities, a red flag in digital surveillance systems. Today, the Anarchist Cookbook is still banned or heavily restricted in over a dozen countries, including Germany, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, and several Middle Eastern nations. In the United States, it's not illegal to own, but law enforcement has repeatedly used it as evidence in criminal investigations. Simply possessing it can raise red flags, especially if combined with other materials. It remains one of the most controversial books ever published, not just because of its content, but because of the debate it sparks. Here's the real question. Is knowledge itself dangerous? Can a book be too powerful to allow? Or does banning information only make it more powerful? William Powell once believed his words could spark a revolution. Then he spent his life trying to bury them. But the book wouldn't die. Because once something is printed, once it's online, once it's out there, you can't unwrite it. This is just one example of forbidden knowledge, but it's not the only one. There are maps, files, entire languages still hidden from the public, and as we dig deeper, we'll find them. Subscribe to Null Index and uncover what they tried to erase.